Today on Locked On Bama, Jimmy Stein's world-famous roster countdown begins.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. And I want to tell you about LinkedIn in just a little bit. You know you want to hear it, so stay tuned for that. Also, thanks for making this your first listen. Appreciate you dudes and dudettes so very much. Jimmy, your world-famous countdown begins today. That is the official start of summer, for those who don't know. Forget Tony Phil or whatever. It's just regular old Jimmy. Does Jimmy come out and see his shadow? And the answer is, I'm not sure because I don't know what all that means.
Who can miss it with that little tiny beer belly?
What we have come to today on the roster countdown, and we're going to be with 87 because that's how many people are on the roster now. Now, that may change between now and the beginning of the year, but for right now, we're going to start with punter Jay Lindsay.
He's actually a tight end.
Tight end. I said punter. Hold on.
We did have a punter named, what was that punter? Remember we had a punter named Jay Williamson. Remember him? He was a scholarship punter from Thomasville, but didn't work out. He ended up transferring.
Yeah, but who was the guy that went to? I should start over. Honest to God,
the guy that went to Notre Dame's name was Jay too. Jay Bramlett.
I know, but I had written down tight end, like tight end, and just punter just came out. Like
It sounds like a punter.
It's like an involuntary body movement of some type.
If you ask me what position would a guy named Jay Lindsay say, I'd probably say, I don't know, punter. But this guy's a tight end.
If he's number 7, if he's number 87 on your roster countdown, he might want to learn to. I'm just teasing, Jay.
And maybe we thought of a P next to his name because he is a pitcher and a really good pitcher in high school, by the way. So pitcher, tight end, Jay Lindsay. No, the reason he's 87, look, I hate putting people at the bottom. It's so dumb to put people at the bottom. And here's the irony to me putting Lindsay at the bottom. I think he's really good. And I think, as crazy as it sounds, next spring, I'm sort of expecting him to be with the first team. And I know that sounds, but I do. But right now, here's the reason he's at 87. At the bottom of my rankings, Luke, the bottom of the rankings, this ranking is about what we're going to see this fall. And I think he's one of the most likely kids to redshirt. So all the red shirts are here at the bottom, or guys I'm anticipating redshirt. And last year, I could look back. I doubt I batted 1,000 last year in predicting the red shirts. I was probably close, but I didn't bat 1,000, I'm sure. But I would project Jay to redshirt, and this is why. A couple of reasons. Number one, he's a late arriver. He wasn't here in January. He didn't go through spring practice, so he's arriving late. Secondly, he's a line of scrimmage player. Most line of scrimmage players are redshirt, whether you're an offensive lineman, a tight end, a defensive lineman, a front seven linebacker. Most of those guys redshirt because they need a year to get bigger and stronger to translate to the SEC. And this kid played in private school ball. So he's making a heck of a jump from private school ball to the SEC. And lastly, I've even got one additional reason he may redshirt. The tight end room is pretty full. I mean, the two guys that are going to play most of the snaps are seniors in C.J. Dupree and Robbie Oost. He's not going to, beat out those guys. Josh Cuevas, the transfer portal guy from Washington, had a great spring. He's going to be higher in my rankings than people might think. Cuevas had a really good spring. He's going to be a first-team player. There's even Danny Lewis as a fourth tight end, Luke. He played first-team snaps last year. So I don't see Jay Lindsay showing up and just beating out guys that were first-team players already in the SEC. So that's why I think he's one of the most likely redshirts, which is why I have him at this spot on the list. But I do think Jay Lindsay, he reminds me a little bit of Robbie Oost, who played as a true freshman with the ones. Robbie Oost has never been anything but a first-team player at Alabama. How about, he also reminds me a little bit of Brad Smelly. Maybe that's because private school, H-back, multi-sport athlete, Brad Smelly. And what did Brad Smelly do? Played as a true freshman, then played in the NFL. So I think, he's got a little Oost, a little Smelly to him. And I think Jay Lindsay's going to have a good career. He's going to be a really good player at Alabama. I just think he's very likely going to redshirt this fall. And that's why he's here at 87 on the list.
Okay. you mentioned, first of all, Robbie Oots, and you know what? He is a heck of an athlete. Now, we're talking about Jay Lindsay here and not Robbie Oots, but I mean, what I'm saying is, hey, that's pretty – I mean, that's a good comparison. I mean, I think that's a good thing. If you're compared to him, you're a great athlete, right? He came from Patrician Academy, right?
Yeah. Patrician Academy in Butler, Alabama. I mean, small town, small academy. I mean, this is true private school stuff.
And let me tell you this. I've been to Butler. I know Butler. If you're from Butler, you're probably pretty tough. I mean, I'm not making it sound like, you know, it's the mean streets of Detroit, but I'm just saying, I mean, small town Alabama, you can probably hold your own in whatever you need to hold your own in.
And plus, this is a big, thick kid, 6'4", 235, pitcher, multi-sport player. Dad was I had friends who played high school football with his dad in Mobile. I think Dad was an offensive lineman in high school, and I think is a coach there at Patrician Academy. So Jay Lindsay, to me, is there's a couple of guys, Luke, that are lightly recruited in this class that I absolutely love as much as some of the 5s and the 4s. And Jay Lindsay is one of them, and Drake Patrick Jr. is one of them. My expectations for both are multi-year starter, very possibly future pro football player. I mean, that's what I personally think of both Lindsay and Dre. But this ranking, again, is about this fall. It's not long-term. Who do I think is going to be a great player over the next 4 or 5 years? It's about who's the best player on the team now and this fall. And that's why for the first few days that we do this roster ranking, we're going to be talking about guys that I'm anticipating redshirting because we won't even see these guys this fall.
And I mean, in a sense, I guess if you wanted to go that route, you could say, okay, the guys we think will redshirt, you just leave off. But I mean, no, we're not doing that.
No, I want to celebrate these guys. By the way, you can play up to 4 games now, and even a 5th game in a bowl and still redshirt. So we may see him in the fall. And here's the irony. I thought of this as I wrote up the piece on Jay on BOL. I thought of this. I'm like, every guy I'm comparing him to played as a true freshman. And here I am saying he's going to redshirt.
No, well,
I compared him to Oost, compared him to Smelly. They played as true freshmen, but they didn't show up at a time where Alabama had
that's what I was going to say.
Experienced tight ends.
Wouldn't you love to know? And I mean, again, and we're not going to break our streak of no research. So I'm not doing any research, but I'm just curious. Like, I wonder what kind of situation those dudes came into.
Right. Yeah. You know, unlikely that it was 4 upperclassmen who've all been playing first-team football in Dupree, Oost, Cuevas, and even Danny Lewis. So different situation. Here's another comp. Really also reminds me a little bit of Preston Dial, who was a private school, not super highly recruited.
A great athlete.
Multi-sport guy. And Preston Dial ended up being a multi-year starter for Nick Saban's early football team.
Played a little pro ball.
I think, he was invited to some camps, and I think he lives in Nashville now.
I thought he played.
Just throwing that out there.
Did he not play for Denver?
I don't remember that, and you could be right. I don't really recall. I don't believe he was drafted, but I do believe he was invited
I called
to
Jay
camp.
Lindsay a punter earlier. So, all right, I'm going to tell everybody about LinkedIn, and that's going to be right now. And you say, hey, Luke, tell us about LinkedIn. I'm glad you asked, people. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect one. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place, bub. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions, they'll probably apply. You know, it didn't even say terms and conditions apply at the end of that live read that I saw, but I just threw it in there because I know they apply because I've done this live read enough.
I don't think terms and conditions would apply too. I think it's a good. I don't think that was a reach.
I think terms and conditions apply to everything. What was that old Sports Center anchor that said, well, on the injury report, he's day to day, but aren't we all?
Aren't we all?
Yeah. And like when you get married, terms and conditions apply. If you ask me to do a fivesome, terms and conditions are going to kick in. Anyway.
Yeah, if you listen to this show, terms and conditions. It's free.
I'm in trouble with one. How do you think I'm going to do with
There's terms and conditions with Locked On. Our show is free, but you're probably not going to learn a thing.
That is true. That's a good point.
You're getting nothing out of it.
Yeah.
You pay nothing and you get nothing out of it. There's the terms and conditions.
There you go. Okay. At your number 86, and here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I didn't realize I didn't do, but I didn't number them on the little Locked On thing on today's show. I'm going to do that next time if you will remind me. But
sure.
You know what I'd love to do is do it number 86 and go like have a big screen pop up and say QB Reese. That's what I'm going to do. I got to get my son to help me. Okay. So QB Reese is number 86. Now, let me say this. I thought Jay Lindsay was a punter. I really didn't. I just said punter. And QB Reese is a linebacker. So there's a lot of misnomers out there right now. But I want to tell you something, Jimmy. If you want to feel better about Alabama in 2024, all you have to do is say, Jimmy Stein ranked QB Reese number 86 in his countdown. Oh, Jimmy Stein thinks there are 85 other dudes better than QB Reese. I love this team because I'm going to tell you something. I might eat my words. I've eaten them before. I have no problem eating them. I will just put a little hot sauce on it. But if I'm telling you, QB Reese is going to be a dude that people at Bama like. I mean, yes, it by the numbers, by statistics, by weight, height, all that stuff. Is he a transfer candidate later on? You bet your bottom dollar he is. But I'm telling you, this is a Luke Robinson special. QB Reese will be a starter at the University of Alabama before he leaves the University of Alabama.
I love it.
Okay?
No, I love it. Bold. It's bold, but I can see it happening. And again, I want people to realize, even though I do like QB, just like I like Jay Lindsay, the ranking is about this fall. And QB Reese is down here because for many of the same reasons Jay Lindsay was. He's a late arrival. He's not getting to Alabama to June 1st, so he didn't get to go through spring practice. So he's behind three other players at his position went through spring. So Okoronkwo and Caden Jones and Sterling Dixon, they all went through the spring practices, so they'll be ahead of QB Reese, to say nothing of the four varsity guys who've played with the first team. They're not going to get beat out by a true freshman. John Campbell, Deontay Lawson, Justin Jefferson, and Jeremiah Alexander have all played snaps in a college football game. So I just don't see how QB Reese gets on the field this fall. I think he's a very likely redshirt, a guy that needs to gain some size. We all know that. So you add it up, and I just think he's a redshirt, and that's why he's here. Being at this spot on the rankings does not mean how I feel about him long term. I'm like Luke. Similarly, I'm very excited to have QB Reese. Any kid that's as productive as he is at the 6A and 7A type level of football in Alabama, those kids have a high floor. They're very rarely not good players. They're all good to a degree. And I expect him, my comp for him, you might like this, Luke. I find him very similar, and I'm going to say not a carbon copy. I find him similar-ish to Sean Dion Hamilton from several years ago. I think they're similarly sized, and he's a similar athlete to Sean Dion. Now, Sean Dion ended up starting games, and I believe was drafted and played in the Lions and is now coaching in the NFL. Real smart kid. QB is a legacy player. Now his dad played at Auburn. What I'm hoping a little bit, Dad was pretty big. Dad was a bigger framed guy than QB. I'm hoping QB gets a little bigger when he's at Alabama. And let me tell you, I like him a lot, and I don't want to bet against that kid at all. He's just so productive. I was happy that Alabama took him and that Kalen DeBoer retook him after getting to Alabama and after watching the tape. I think this is an effort kid and a bit of a gump, which and I value gumps. I really do.
Oh, I think gumpage ought to be something we factor in our own star rankings.
Hey, Ryan Williams is a gump, and so is Jalen Mboumoua, and some of the
you can't factor it in on a national level. Because you can only factor it in if you're re-ranking after the commitments are done. And you're like, I want to rank the commits and forget who, rivals are on 3 has a 5-star. I'm going to give my own 5-star. I think we ought to put Gumpage in there because I think it's important to want to stay at your school, learn to develop. I guess the transfer portal wasn't as bustling back then, but you think about Mac Jones. Mac Jones is a gump. He hung around. I don't think he ever talked about leaving. Now, we all love Tua Tagovailoa, but he openly talked about, I thought I was going to leave because Jalen Hurts was going to be back. So, and until the second half of the national championship game. Najee Harris, the same thing. So we love those guys. Those guys are gumps for sure, but their gumpage would probably be low in that moment. Now, it may be higher now, but anyway, QB Reese, this is going to sound ridiculously stupid, so just bear with me. When I think QB Reese and I think about not necessarily the expectations I have with him, but the comp I have for him, what I'm thinking? And this is so stupid. People are going to – somebody may wreck. I may get sued for saying this. May wreck their car when I say this. Zach Thomas.
Oh,
kind of undersized, but just he's everywhere.
No, I like
QB Reese
was
everywhere. Every time I saw him play, he was everywhere. It didn't seem like he was the fastest dude. He certainly wasn't the biggest, but he made every tackle and he would intercept a ball and he would get a fumble. He just was everywhere. And Zach Thomas was that kind of dude. I'm not saying QB Reese will be in the NFL Hall of Fame or anything. I'm saying that's the kind of undersized, hey, I'm going to play with chip on my shoulder kind of player he is.
I've seen so many high school football players, Luke. I bet you agree with this. You've seen a lot of high school football too. There's kind of 2 different types of good college prospects. One is just a great college prospect. You can go see him play a high school football game, and he's got a great frame, and he's tall, and he can run, and he's an incredible athlete. And then the game's over, and you're like, man, he looks good. He looks like a runway model. That's the guy you'd pluck off the bus, but he didn't do much. He's just all potential. And then there's a second type guy who's a good college prospect, but he's a reason his high school team wins games. And that's QB Reese. Ramsey wins games because QB Reese insisted that they did. He would make all the plays. He would be responsible for his team having success because of him. And I love kids like that. As a matter of fact, it's easy to fall in love with kids like that as opposed to the kid that I would just call the clay, a kid that you got to mold, a kid that you got to develop, a kid you got to really work on his game. Now, a lot of those guys end up being first-round picks because it's not until they get to college that they fully develop what they are. But QB Reese is one of these kids. Hey, he's showing up a dude. He's a player, and he's going to help. It would be shocking, by the way, if he's not at the very least a good special teams player.
Well, and he's also a natural leader.
I like it.
Ramsey, as a program, as you said, was better because of him. You take him off that team, you'd probably lose 3 extra games.
I couldn't agree more.
So,
and it's easy to like kids like that. And then you got the rare guys like Ryan Williams, who are both, who were fantastic from a measurables. I run a 4.4, and I'm also the reason that my team wins games and is one of the top 10 high school teams in America. You do have that rare kid, but that's why Ryan Williams is almost a household name to people who don't even care much about football.
Speaking of Ryan Williams and his gumpage factor, which is through the roof, he was at the baseball game on Friday night, and he took a picture with your cohort Andrew Bone's nephews. And he's just got this smile. You can tell, like, he's so happy to be there. It's not like he's going to be overwhelmed by the moment. Trust me on that. But at the same time, this is going to be a guy we all are going to adore. I'm just telling y'all, this is a Ryan Williams podcast now and forever.
His nickname is apt. Hollywood fits him perfectly because there's an it factor to him, and he is really comfortable being Ryan Williams. And by the way, I know, been around college football enough. A lot of kids are not comfortable being famous or well-known or stars. A lot of kids aren't comfortable with that. There's an anxiety to that with some kids. Not Ryan. If Ryan's anxious about being Ryan Williams, he hides it really well. And he carries himself like a star, but does it in a non-arrogant fashion. He's just a star. You can look at Ryan Williams and like, there's a star right there.
Winner, take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. I hope you took the Pacers today because, my God, did they put it on the Knicks. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads or money lines or player props or team props or whatever you want and much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every single playoff shot count. FanDuel, of course, as we all know, is America's #1 sportsbook. Now that I've already misread something, I think the Pacers blew out the Knicks. When I was at the gym earlier, they were up by 40. And so I mean, unless the Knicks had the biggest comeback in the history of comebacks of any sport, then okay.
Yeah.
So, I think the Pacers blew away.
I don't know either, but I'm with you. The last I saw the score, the Pacers were way up. And that would tie that series at 2 games apiece, I believe. You're more of a basketball guy than me.
Not NBA.
Well, the way I bet during the 82 game NBA regular season, I watch a collective 15 minutes of NBA basketball of over everyone playing 82 games. Then the playoffs start. I watch a lot. I keep up with every series. I even look at box scores the next day. I mean, I want to know in the playoffs what's going on and who's good. And I watch quite a bit of playoffs. And when it gets down to the finals, I'll probably watch every minute of the finals. So I'm just that kind of NBA fan, which I guess isn't much of a fan because I don't watch the regular season, but I do enjoy the NBA playoffs greatly.
If you are watching this on YouTube and you saw me sort of silently moving my lips while Jimmy was talking, it's because I wanted to tell you about our number 85 player, who is Steve Mboumoua. I hope that's right. I don't know.
That's not right.
That's not right?
That's not right. Now, okay. I don't know what is right for sure, but I know that's not it. I looked it up, and I have to say it slowly because I only learned how to say it when I wrote my piece on him for BOL a couple days ago. Mboumoua.
Okay, I even misspelled it on the thing that I have there, by the way. So no wonder.
I think it's right.
No, it's not.
I think it's right.
I'm looking. I just Googled. It's Mboumoua, and I have an extra B in there.
Oh, okay.
The extra B is for badass.
He sorted. Regardless, we're going to work on that. And we called him a running joke on BOL for months has been, we just call him Steve. So we don't really tackle the last name spelling or pronunciation. And hey, the cool thing is this kid is from Quebec. That's why he's got the unusual last name. He's from Quebec. And when he committed, his entire high school, their primary language is French. So his high school commitment ceremony was 100% in French. And I'm like, okay, this makes him the coolest guy on the team. And and if you don't think that's cool, let's see a guy from Birmingham try that. But Mboumoua or whatever, good prospect. Obviously, that's why we took him. He had a lot of good SEC offers. This is a kid that's a project, and that's why he's down here. Also a late arrival, didn't go through spring practice, hadn't played a lot of football in his life, but the size and speed. I mean, this is a clay type guy that you mold 6'3", 275. The comp for him is kind of tough because of his size. And I also think he projects in the new defense. He could potentially play bandit. I also think he could grow into a nose guard. Most likely he's just going to be a defensive tackle. But he's so athletic and likely going to grow into a very big person. He projects at any of the defensive line spots. My comp for him right now is Justin Mboumoua, simply because I think they have similar size and explosive athleticism at the same age. I mean, at the same age, Mboumoua was 6'3", 270. Steve is 6'3", 275. But Justin Mboumoua played high school football in Georgia at a program that produces prospects every year. He's just going to be more advanced and was ready to play early. I think with Steve, it may take a hot minute. But he's down here as a projected redshirt. He is a project-type player, but this is one you take almost every time. For everybody who just grew uninterested when I said project, bring it up with Kirby Smart because Georgia offered him too. I mean, this is a kid you take your chances with because you just don't normally find guys who have his size, length, and explosive athletic ability, you can build a first-round pick out of his natural tools. We'll just see how long it takes to get him ready to play. He's also got to adjust culturally. Quebec to Tuscaloosa is a heck of a leap. But we've had a lot of Canadian athletes lately, and a lot of them have done well, like Charles Bediako, for instance, with the basketball team. We had a gymnast from Canada who was really good. And a couple football players have been. John Mechie spent some time in Canada, and he clearly did well. And he could speak French like Steve here.
The guy from Canada a while back that almost got in trouble under the Dubo stuff. Something.
Naughton McKay Losher.
Naughton McKay Losher. That's it.
His nickname was Chief.
Yeah.
Naughton McKay Losher. Pretty good player. He was okay. He wasn't awesome. He wasn't Saban. He wasn't Saban first round pick stuff. But during a time Alabama wasn't very good, he was a pretty good player on those teams. Yeah. And he was from Canada.
I thought you were going to say that he reminded you of Justin Aboigbe because it will take us 4 years to learn to pronounce his name just as well as it took us to learn Aboigbe. Also,
gosh, I worked on it and I still can't get it right. I know it's Mbou. I thought it was Mboumoua, but it might be Mboumoua. That might be it.
Okay, we've got to come up with something now that we have all these foreigners playing for us. We've got to come up with something cool for every time one of them does something, like, for Steve, maybe every time there's a sack, we just flash up, a picture of the French flag and Napoleon and say Sacre Bleu or something like that. That'd be kind of cool.
What about yelling, soccer is so popular and all the other sports anymore. What if we just yell goal like they do on the broadcast, the foreign soccer broadcast? Goal. Every time they do something good, whether it's a German player, a Canadian player, all of them.
Speaking of the Simpsons, which we weren't, but I remember there was a Simpsons one time when Lisa was being Joan of Arc. It was like a little trilogy thing that they had. And she said, I had a vision. She was telling Homer, who was like her French dad in this little bit, hey, I had a dream last night that God told me I'd lead the French to victory. And he said, victory? We're French. We don't even have a word for that. So good. There's still so many old good Simpsons quotes.
Steve's Canadian, so he's not going to claim that.
But his whole thing was in
French. But he speaks it. But I think he's from Canada. They're winners. And
okay, well, maybe when he gets a sack, we go. They're like on the big jumbotron. It goes, "Good sack, eh?" How about that? I don't really know what else does Canada
have. Hockey.
Maybe they do like the little red siren that goes off on the net.
That would be cool. Now that is cool. The siren that goes off when a hockey goal is scored.
I like that. Okay,
we'll send
every player.
We'll send an email to the PA guy at Tony at the Bama games.
Tony, is he Italian?
Is it Tony Giles? Is it Tony Giles? You met him before? Is that his name?
I know
the PA guy.
Giles. Is that him? I think it's him.
Yeah, I think he does the PA at the stadium.
Man, I don't know.
I'll Google
I thought Jay Lindsay was a punter. What do I know? All right. That's going to do it for today's podcast.
More with the countdown all week. More with the countdown.
Yeah, we're going to do countdown. It's like we don't expect it. If we don't do a countdown, it's because something big happened, good or bad. So that's probably.
We'll get into some mock drafts probably tomorrow too. A lot of mock drafts. Basketball came out because of the lottery.
I mean, other than I've seen Sears go at 33, but that's about as high as I've seen him. And I'm going to say Sears is going to be back until he proves me wrong.
I'm going to say he's going to be back too because I prefer to be optimistic. I mean, we don't know until we know, and I just prefer to be optimistic. But I really think he's going to be back. I'll be honest, I'm a little worried about Jaron Stevenson, a little worried. And I just say that because, I mean, it could be a Josh Primo type thing. Now, I know Primo was more thought to be headed to the draft at this stage than Stevenson, but that G League combine invite he got to, I mean, I think the NBA, he's young, and I'm worried that
he enrolled a year early. So Exactly. You're right how young he is.
Just like Primo, and I'm worried that he could be talked into, hey, if you're in the G League, your whole life is basketball. We're going to develop you better than the college game will. And I'm not arguing whether that's the correct thing or not, but I'm worried he's going to end up choosing, hey, we will sign you to a G League deal and we'll develop you more than the college game will. So I'm a little worried about him falling for that argument, which may or may not hold water.
All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.